Hey, welcome to Saved and Besieged by Flippin' Tables. This is a place where faith meets the fight, and your permission to be brutally honest about your pain without letting go of Jesus. This is a space for the burned, the bruised, and the barely hanging on. No sugarcoating, no shallow faith, just raw hope, real theology, and a God who refuses to walk out when life gets ugly. Saved and Besieged by Flippin' Tables, for the wrecked, the raw, and the rising. Hey, this is Cece.
And I'm JR.
Together we're JRCC. Our mission is simple, to bring you one podcast at a time about faith.
Not the polished, sugar-coated version, but real faith.
The kind that wrestles doubts, cries out, and still finds Jesus in the mess.
That's what Saved and Besieged is all about.
Welcome to Saved and Besieged with JRCC. Last week we looked at the story of Mephibosheth, and this week we're going to carry on the same vein and look at two biblical examples. First, Peter, and second, the man with the mat. Think about Peter for a minute. He wasn't a church poster boy. He was loud, quick to speak, quick to swing a sword, quick to make big promises. I'll never leave you, Jesus. I'll die with you, Jesus. And then the night came. Someone asked, "Aren't you with Jesus?" And fear rushed his body like cold water. He said no. Then he said no again. Then under pressure, he swore he didn't even know Jesus. The rooster crowed. Peter caught Jesus' eye across the courtyard. That look would sit in his chest like a stone. Imagine the walk home, the way your legs go weak when you realize you did the one thing you promised you wouldn't. Imagine trying to sleep with those words echoing in your head. He didn't just fail, he failed publicly. His friends knew, the other disciples knew, the servants there knew, heaven knew. And if that were you or me, we would think it was over. And Peter did exactly what most of us would do after a crash. He went back to what he knew. He went fishing. And that's what you do when the future feels closed. You reach for the old job, the old relationships, the old habits, the old roots. And then Jesus turned up on the shore like he always does. Quiet, steady, not angry. And bear in mind, this is after Jesus had died and had resurrected. He made breakfast. No lecture, no speech about loyalty, just fire, fish, and the smell of morning. Then he asked Peter one question. Do you love me? No, not why'd you do it. Not can you promise it'll never happen again. Just, do you love me? 3 times he asked that. And each time Peter said yes. And Jesus gave him a job. Feed my sheep. In other words, I still want you. Fast forward, maybe many years later, the same man who was hiding and ashamed stood up in front of a crowd and spoke with a clear voice. He didn't become a different person overnight. He still had the same face, the same history, probably the same shame. But the shame didn't run the show anymore. Courage did. Love did. And that's what Jesus does. He doesn't pretend the failure didn't happen. He meets you in the middle of it, forgives you in it, and then gives you something to do. This isn't just Peter's story. It's ours. You've made promises you couldn't keep. You and I have said things we'd never do and that we'd never go back to, and then we've always done it. You've told someone you changed and then watch yourself repeat the same old pattern like a track that you couldn't stop playing. Maybe it's drinking, maybe it's lying, maybe it's anger that comes out of nowhere and scares your own kids. Maybe it's an affair, maybe it's dead. And you can lie at night and think, I've blown it, properly blown it this time. Hear this. Failure is a moment. It's not a name. It's something you did, not who you are. God isn't surprised by the bit of your story that you hate. He isn't wringing his hands or crossing his arms and going, can't believe you did that. He factored in all of that. He comes to the shoreline of our lives that you've retreated to, and he asks the one simple question, do you love me? If your answer is yes, a shaky yes, a small yes, a yes that's not confident, he doesn't park you on the bench. He puts something in your hands. Feed my sheep. Call your brother, say sorry to your child, tell the truth to your spouse, share your story with someone who thinks they're in it by themselves. Shame says, sit down, stay quiet, don't go down to speak. But Jesus says, stand up, we've got people to feed. Shame says, you've disqualified yourself, can't believe you did that. Jesus says, I chose you, knowing all of it. Shame looks back and keeps you stuck. Jesus looks you in the eye and points you forward. And yes, there are consequences. Trust needs rebuilding, habits need breaking, apologies need making. Peter still had to face the same people who watched him betray Jesus, who watched him crack. You might have to face a court date or counseling or a kitchen table conversation that makes your stomach flip. But none of that means God has left you. It means He's leading you. When He restores, He also retrains. He teaches your mouth to tell the truth. He teaches your hands to do the next good thing. And He teaches your feet to walk back into the rooms you and I would rather avoid. Think of a few simple scenes. You may have told yourself you'd never drink alone again, but last night you did. This morning you can pray one honest sentence. God, I blew it. You can't promise 10 years of sobriety. You do one day with God. You may have lied to someone at work to cover a mistake. You feel sick. You tell Jesus, I can't do this. I can't believe I blew this. And you might have to send an email to your manager. I wasn't straight with you yesterday. Here's what happened and here's how I'm fixing it. And maybe there are consequences, but you will do it anyway. Just find the right thing and just do it, and do it anyway. You shouted at your child. You see them flinch. You kneel and you say, I'm sorry, darling, I was wrong. That wasn't okay. You ask God to slow your mouth next time. You tell another adult so you're not carrying it alone. And this is how your pain becomes a platform. Not because you perform, but because you tell the truth about what God has done. Peter didn't stand up on the day and pretend he'd always been brave. His boldness had the smell of beach on it, the memory of a fire, a breakfast, and a savior who didn't walk away. And that's what gives your words weight, not perfection. Jesus found me. I had failed, but He's still here. And people feel it when you speak from that standpoint. So no, your mistakes don't have to be your destiny. They can be the doorway God uses to reach other people who think that they're too far gone. The very place you're most ashamed of can be the place where you're most honest. And that honesty will feed people who are starving for hope. Your damage doesn't disqualify you. Often it's the thing that makes you most useful because you know what it is to have been in that position. If you need a place to start, borrow Peter's answer. Sit where you are and say, yeah, Jesus, you know everything, but you still know I love you. And that's how deniers become preachers, not with big moments, but with one step at a time and a God who stays. So stay tuned for the next bit, where we talk about a story of a man in John chapter 5. Still with us? This is Saved and Besieged by Flippin' Tables. Faith in the middle of the fight. Let's dig deeper. Welcome back to Saved and Besieged with JRCC. We've been talking about commissioning your damage and moving from damage to destiny. So let's talk about the man in John chapter 5. He wasn't there for a weekend. He'd been lying by that pool for 38 years. That's 38 birthdays, 38 winters, 38 times watching healthy people walk past with places to be. The pool was called Bethesda, or House of Mercy. It was by the sheep gate in Gethsemane under 5 covered porches. Those porches were crowded, blind, lame, paralyzed. All these people laid out on thin mats waiting. And the story was sometimes the water rippled and the first one in got healed. Imagine that rule if you can't move. Mercy and grace, but only for the fastest. Hope, if only you have help. It turns sickness into a race and the weak into spectators. And that's the world that this man lived in. In that culture, a man was expected to work, provide, stand tall in the community. If you couldn't walk, you couldn't work. So you begged. You were carried. Sometimes people stepped around you, people stared, some looked through you. Many thought disability meant you or your parents had done something wrong or had sinned. So shame hung on you. You were a burden people argued about rather than a neighbor people brought home. And Jesus walks up to him and says, do you want to get well? It sounds like a stupid question, but it wasn't. After 38 years, sometimes your struggle becomes your destiny, becomes your whole world. It can become your place, your people, your story. You might not even know who you are without it. That man doesn't say yes or no. He says, I have no one to help me into the pool. That line really hit me. I have no one. That's the sound of a lonely life of 38 years. Now, Jesus doesn't help him into the water. He doesn't fix the system. He doesn't fix a system that says first one in. He goes straight to the man and speaks really short lines that cut through 38 years. Get up, pick up your mat, walk. And the man does. Legs that had been dead under him wake up. Feet that had never carried him now hold his weight. Let's talk about that. He carried his mat. Now, it's not soft, it's not pretty. It's a cheap roll of reeds or cloth, sweat-stained, sun-bleached, smelly. It smells of dust and old days. And that's the thing people saw first when they looked at him. The sign that said disabled, problem, poverty. For years, the mat was his address and his limit. Where do you live? On that mat by the pillar. What do you do? Not much. I lie here. The mat is the proof of every no, every shrug, every pitying coin that was tossed probably without even eye contact. But Jesus says, pick up your mat. Why would he want to carry that? If it were me, I would want to kick it into the pool and watch it sink. Leave it behind like a bad dream. New shoes, no questions. But Jesus says, pick up your mat. Not because Jesus wants him to carry shame, but because he wants him to carry his story. The thing that once held him, he now holds. The object that shouted stuck now says standing. He became a walking billboard of mercy in a city that had learned to walk past him. There's more. It was a Sabbath. Carrying anything back in those days counted as work. So when the man walks, mat under his arm, the religious police or the Pharisees of the day said, it's the Sabbath, you're not allowed to carry your mat. They don't say, oh my goodness, you're walking. That's how upside down it had become. And that's probably how it is now as well. We've got so many rules. We've forgotten the one good day someone's had. And we go, oh, but you're still stuck in it. Rules that are louder than lives. And the man answers simply, the man who made me well said, pick up your mat and walk. In other words, he healed me. I'm going to do what he told me to do. So the mat became two things at once, a testimony and a protest. A testimony that God had moved, and a quiet protest against a religion that's forgotten people. Think about how that felt. He's walking through the streets he only ever saw from ankle height. Same stones, same stalls, same voices, but a different view. People who used to step over him have to now step aside for him. And he's carrying that old rubbish thing under his arm. He can feel eyes on it. He can hear whispers. He can also hear his own footsteps. And that sound, I think, is a kind of worship. Your mat might not be made of reeds, but you know what it is. It's the empty bottle in the bin you used to hide. It's the hospital bracelet in a drawer. It's the letter that says final notice. It's the court papers you folded and unfolded over and over again. It's the scar you keep covered. It's the school report that made you think you were stupid. It's an apology you owe, but the silence you've kept. It's a divorce paper. It's the relapse date you don't want to remember. You don't want to carry that. Of course you don't. I wouldn't want to either. Who wants to walk around with old labels in plain sight? Who wants the looks, the questions, and the feeling that people know that that was you and was about you? But listen, Jesus doesn't tell the man, forget your past. He tells him, carry it in a new way. It's your mat. It was under you. Now you carry it. The mat under your arm says, that's what held me and now I'm holding it. It doesn't own me anymore. That's not showing off. That's showing truth. Not to glory in pain, but to point to the one who met you on the ground. And it matters that Jesus met him before the temple, before the clean clothes, before the get sorted life. He finds him as he is, not as a case, not as an invalid, a man with a name and a story, and 38 years of waiting. Later, Jesus meets him again and says, you're well, stop sinning, or something worse may happen to you. That line can sound really harsh, but if you look at Jesus through the eyes of a loving God, and you remember what he is truly like, he's not saying, hey, the disability was your fault. He's saying, you've got a new life now. Don't crawl back under the thing I lifted you from. Healing isn't just strong legs. It's a changed path. And Jesus cares about the whole person. The body that walks, the heart that chooses, the future that could be lost if he returns to the old pattern that broke him. Back to us. Carrying your mat doesn't mean dragging shame around you. It doesn't mean you don't pretend you were never on the ground. It means when someone says, how are you walking today? You can say, well, there was a time I wasn't, and Jesus met me. That's why I'm walking. It means when a rule tries to quiet your story and say, shut up, you keep walking because you know where you were. It means when you see someone else on the floor, you don't step over them. You know what the view is from down there. You remember the smell of stone and dust, and you remember what it was like to feel invisible. So you sit with them, you speak their language, honest, simple, and no fuss. You don't have to hold your mat high, you don't have to wave it, you don't have to pretend it didn't exist. Let it sit under your arm. Let it change how people look at you and how you treat people who are still waiting by their own pool, watching others move on. Let it keep you humble and soft and brave at the same time. The pool offered healing to the first one in. Jesus offered healing to the one no one helped. The pool made you complete. Jesus makes you seen. Take the very thing that once crippled you and let it become your testimony. Let it become the visible proof of what God has done in your life. Stay tuned for the next part where we look at some real-world examples of transformation. You're not too broken and you're not too far gone for God to stay. Even in the darkest night, He's still there, waiting and listening out for you. This is Saved and Besieged. Let's keep moving into the next part. Welcome back. Now, healing isn't something that just happens automatically. It's a decision. It's a decision to stop holding on to the damage and living in the past. Healing doesn't come when we're perfect. It comes when we're willing to be honest with God. And when we say, God, I can't hold this anymore. I give it to you. And we have the power to choose our next season. Yeah, the damage may have been done to you, but what you do with it is our decision. You can hold on to the pain, the anger, and the shame, or you can give it to God and let Him turn it into something beautiful. Let's get real for a second. Addiction is one of the most crippling forms of damage. It's the invisible battle no one talks about, yet holds many of us hostage. And I'm not just talking about alcohol, because that's where every Christian's mind goes. I'm talking about anything. Addiction to porn, addiction to sugar, addiction to gossip. You may have tried to quit, tried to get clean, but only to found yourself slipping back. And it's easy to feel like your addiction is your identity. Let's consider someone who's been in an abusive relationship for years, like me. Someone who's been told they're not good enough, not worthy, or they'll never make it on their own. I was emotionally scarred, physically broken, and I was stuck in the same toxic cycle. But He's changed it because I gave it to Him. I told God that I can't do this myself. I'm just nuts. And it's really hard to manage this. But He's taken those scars and made it a symbol for power. So if we look at Revelation chapter 12, verse 1, it says, they triumphed over Him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. We've probably been through it, probably sat through it. Life sat on our chest and didn't move. And when you've been betrayed by someone you trusted or done something, you kind of look at yourself and go, what's left in me? You remember who you used to feel like, but now it's a hollow version. And when you've been rejected, you start pre-rehearsing goodbyes. When you've fought cravings or panic or sadness, you can't remember a day off. And we're not faithless when we go through that. We're just bruised. And you're not cold. You're protecting whatever is left. Here's the bit your pain keeps hiding from God. God still sees value in you, not a vague chin-up way. He sees the real you, scars and stories and all of it, and He doesn't flinch. We forget that when it hurts. We let the damage set the label. I'm the addict. I'm the one who was hit. I'm the one who left or who was left. I'm the one who failed. Those things are part of your story. They're just a frame. They're a highlight reel. They are not who you are. God doesn't patch you up so you just look tidy. He heals because He has purpose for you. Not later when you've earned it or when you feel worthy. It's right now when you feel wobbly. Think of a cracked mug. It still holds tea. It might show its repair, but the warmth is real. Or a violin with the seam mended. People are like that. Wounds can become windows. What you've lived through can make you safer for someone to sit with. You'll recognize that look in another person's eyes. You'll know when to talk and when to be quiet. That is not nothing. That is gold. There's a voice that will teach you. It will tell you when you're finished. It tells you you're dirty. It tells you that other people get grace and you get rules. That's not the voice that God wants you to listen to, because that's not God's voice. And you might be thinking, what could God possibly do with me now? Well, more than you can think. But He doesn't skip the hard parts. Some triggers are real. Some days you'll feel like you're back at the start. But even on those days, your worth doesn't stop. You're not a stock price. You're not going to go up and down in God's eyes. You're a person. God doesn't care that you're not happy with your performance. When you wobble, He doesn't go, oh, I'm done with you. He steadies you. And when you fall, He doesn't label you and go, you're just a loser, you're just a failure, I can't use you in my kingdom. That's not God, because He lifts you. And maybe you feel like a shell right now, but remember, you will overcome Him by the word of your testimony, by the word of your story. Sit with that for a second. Even if you feel like a shell, emptiness is not the end. It's room, because God then can pour courage where fear has been living rent-free. He can pour patience where anger has kept the lights on. And if the word having purpose feels heavy, shrink it down. Purpose isn't always a platform. It's the way you look at someone in the eye and mean it. So if you're asking what's left in me, well, there's more than you think. Let me put it like this. Think about a vessel or container, or, it might be damaged or scarred, But the value isn't in the container, it's in the contents. You may have been broken, cracked by life circumstances, but the value still remains inside of you. The spirit that God placed in you is still there, and it's full of potential. Damage doesn't change what's inside. Think about a cup, for example. If you've been through pain, it's like your cup's been shattered. But the liquid inside, that essence, that spirit, that calling is still valuable. The cracks in the cup don't change the fact that what's inside still has power. And you are that vessel. The scars you carry, the broken pieces of your past, they are part of your story. But they don't take away the inherent value God placed in you. Now, God has to use the contents of your life, your heart, your testimony for His purpose. And just remember, healing is not the end of the journey. It's the beginning. When God heals you, He doesn't want you just to sit in the comfort of your healing. He sends you out to share your story. Pick up your mat and walk. Sometimes faith hurts, sometimes it heals. Most days it's both. This is Saved and Besieged. Let's keep going. Welcome back. One of the most powerful things you can do in your healing journey is to be transparent. And you might not be a Christian, you might be a Christian, you might not be sure, you might be curious. Just talk to God. You don't have to feel Him, you don't have to hear His voice. You can just talk to Him. Never mind what anybody else says. They might say, oh, you're too broken. You need to fix yourself up. God's not going to listen to a drug addict. God's not going to listen to a drunk. That is not true. God never once said in His word He's not going to listen to someone. Oh, God doesn't listen to gays. That is just a load of crap. Just talk to God. He's there. He created you. How is He not going to listen to you? Because the enemy thrives in silence. He wants you to hide. He wants you to keep everything under wraps and to keep pretending that you have everything together. But the truth is, all of that loses power when it's brought into the light. It disarms the enemy's power over you. You don't need someone else's approval to say whether, when, or how you can talk to God. Because transparency is powerful. It tells the world, I'm not perfect, but I'm real. I've been through hell, but I'm still standing. And I'm still trusting God, whether you like it or not. And this is the most important thing, because when you do that, when you can talk to a God who created you, who loves you, and who is not waiting for someone else's approval, God is not waiting for a pastor to say whether you're fit to talk to Him or not. And when you can break through those bonds and just speak to God, because remember, Christianity is a relationship. It's between you and God, not between you, the church pastor, and God. And when you do that, you give others permission to find God, to heal. And when you show them that they don't have to hide the things that they're going through, the thoughts that they have. And let me also tell you, God is a big boy. He wears big boy pants. And He can handle you telling Him that you don't believe in Him. There's nothing that He hasn't heard before. And that doesn't mean you air your dirty laundry out for everyone to see. It means being honest with God for Him to see you. Because Christianity is not a performance. So bring everything to God. Whether it's your damage, whether it's your doubts, whether it is even your clarity. Even if you think, I don't believe in you, God. I don't believe in religion. And you're probably fair to think that. Because like I always say, you're probably not a Christian because you've either met one or you haven't. And you might be standing at the crossroads going, I don't know. Tell God that. He wants to hear that. He wants to be a part of every part of your life. So bring everything to Him. Let Him turn it into a masterpiece, because only He can. Human beings can't do anything. They can have opinions, they can have thoughts, they can have feelings, but they can't do anything to your life. They cannot add any worth to your life. They can try and take it away. But only God can. So whatever you've carried for years, maybe as long as you can remember, and maybe has become a part of you, whatever it is, it's part of the story that you've been living, and you can feel the weight. And sometimes it can keep you stuck. And that's how the enemy uses the damage to define you. So acknowledge it. Acknowledge what you can't see or face. Because we can't heal what we refuse to face. And we push the pain down because we don't want to deal with it. It's easy. But acknowledge your wounds and then surrender it to God, just like I said before. Talk to Him. You don't have to say fancy prayers. You don't have to kneel down. You just talk to Him. Just go, hey God, I don't know what's going on. And one of the most powerful prayers is, God help. Or even, I can't do this. I can't deal with this. And the truth is, you don't have to do any of it. And just trust God with the process. You're not going to be fixed overnight. Maybe there's nothing to really fix and you just need a listening ear. And you don't have to wait for years for it. Just talk to God. And you might not see changes happen overnight, and that's okay, because there's a process to everything. And then just step into the healing. We talked about Mephibosheth last week. He didn't just sit in the shadows. Mephibosheth was seated at the table so he could be shown who he was, not what his damage was. And the last step of all of this is share your story. Because once you started talking to God, you can talk to people, and who cares what religious people think or what the righteous people think? Talk to people that are going through what you're going through, because then it becomes a weapon against the enemy, and it shows that God is bigger than any of it. Because at the end of the day, God doesn't want to waste your pain, your doubts, your fears, and He's not going to look at any of that and think it's beyond redemption. And when you bring your damage to Him, you're not just surrendering your past, you're stepping into the destiny that He's always had for you, because you're not defined by any of that. It doesn't matter how deep the scars are or how far back the pain goes. And He doesn't heal us for us alone. You've got to remember that. When He asked us to go out and make disciples, that's exactly what it was. Not to go out and tell people about Jesus and all the things that someone else is doing wrong. Yeah, you've got to go and tell people about Jesus, but not judge them for it if they're not following the way you are, because it's a relationship. So when He gave us the Great Commission, go out and make disciples, go out and tell people about the damage that they're going through, was the same thing that you were going through. And that's where the freedom is. So bring your damage to God. Don't hide it. Let God cover it, carry it, and use it to bring a masterpiece, because you're more than all of that. And your story is far from over. And I know the best chapters are yet to come. Next week, we'll explore how to live intentionally, following Paul's example of focusing on purpose instead of panic. We'll learn practical ways to decide your distractions, ask the right questions, and keep your eyes on what truly matters, even when people around you are trying to pull you off course. And that's a wrap for this week's episode of Saved and Besieged by Flippin' Tables. Stay tuned. Next week, we'll dive even deeper into the trenches with a conversation you won't want to miss. We'll talk about the battles no one sees, the prayers that feel like they bounce off the ceiling, and why God's still in it with you, even when you're ready to tap out.
In the meantime, if you want to go even further, check out our books on faith, addiction and survival at flippintables.co.nz. They're raw, real and written for the wrecked, the raw and the rising.
Until then, keep fighting, keep trusting, and remember, Jesus never walks out when life gets ugly.